Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webcast on lessons for thriving, not just surviving in the cloud. I'm joined here today with two wonderful people and presenters. I have Frederick Janssen, who's the Global Head of IT Infrastructure at Siemens, and Jay Chaudhry, who's the CEO, Chairman, and Founder of Zscaler. Let's try to make today's session engaging. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jay Chaudhry. Jay?
Jerry, thank you. Today we have a very exciting topic, lessons for thriving, not just surviving in the cloud. Every CIO, CTO, CISO, and IT execs are looking for embracing cloud, but they're not sure how to do it. Today, together with Frederick Janssen of Siemens, we will walk you through the journey of one of the largest companies the world has taken to embrace. You know, as I go out there and hear from customers, they all believe that cloud is happening. And one CIO put it, it is happening. You can fight it or you can embrace it. If you embrace it, your business benefits, you come across progressive and a forward thinker. And this webcast is to give you a view of how other companies are looking at it and how Zscaler can help you in this journey. I'm going to move at a fairly fast pace, giving you a view of how things are happening, how transformation is taking place in companies, and how we can play a role there. So let's go back a few hundred years. In the physical world, we had to defend ourselves. We built perimeters, we built castles, we built moat, we protect our people and our core assets, which typically would be gold. Then we needed to go in and out, where we built drawbridges so we could move in and out. And then we hired guards to be at the gate to keep the enemies out so unwanted people couldn't get in. Sounds familiar? In the modern world of computing, we borrowed the same paradigm. We borrowed the same simile. We built castles and moat. Or what were we protecting? We built corporate networks. We had our employees, our servers, and applications on the network, and we needed to keep the network safe. So security appliances came in as our drawbridge. And it started out with a simple firewall and URL filtering, so people could go to the open internet, which was becoming a lot of source of information. And as we saw more and more traffic going to the internet, more and more bad guys wanted to get a piece of the action. And, sorry, it's still good. So CISOs wanted more security. They wanted antivirus gateway, DLP, SSL scanning, sandboxing, to name a few. This is typically known as outbound gateway. And then as employees became mobile, they wanted to access corporate applications from outside no matter where they are. We had to come up with inbound gateways, starting with global load balancers, DDoS protection, external firewalls, VPN concentrators, internal firewalls, load balancers, all this collection typically called inbound gateway. Does it look familiar? In most of my meetings, before I ask, the customers say, that is us. So this is what makes inbound and outbound gateway, your DMZ, rather complex. Now, this is not just it. It's more than that. But moving back to our simile, the world evolved. People were not happy inside the castle. They sought greener pastures. They wanted to move out and expand for freedom and prosperity. The same kind of thing is happening in the world of computing. What are the greener pastures in the world of IT? Well, cloud is becoming that destination. So our apps are moving from our data center to the cloud. And users who had to come to the office and sit inside our castle to work, now they want to work from no matter where they are. So what has happened to the perimeter? Well, people are working outside our moat. and traffic patterns are shifting, we no longer control the network. If your application is Workday, do you control the network? You don't. If your application is sitting in Azure, do you control the network? You don't. So the notion of network security, securing the network that we have been investing a lot of money in, is becoming irrelevant. A new approach is needed to protect. At the end of the day, the notion was never supposed to be protecting the network. It was supposed to be applications and users, because network is merely a transport. So trying to sum up my example, so we had this castle and moat paradigm. We had these security gateways as a drawbridge and guards. And lastly, the greener pastures, which is our cloud applications, are being done for prosperity, freedom, or in the modern terms, it is being done for being competitive and being agile. So with this setup, now imagine if we use the old approaches to protect the new world of IT, the cloud applications. Even if you can remove the physical box and call it a VM, it's still the same old technology, doesn't really work. So what IT is looking at is transforming the old world where everything sat in the data center. Data center was the center of the universe. Hence, the hub and spoke network made perfect sense. It optimized traffic flows with reliability and quality of service. Now, destination being changed, the network and security both are transforming from this hub and spoke to a new network where it is a cloud-centric rather than the data-centric. So your networks need to point to the internet and the cloud rather than coming back to the data center. That's really the big transformation we're seeing out there. So the new approach to security would have to think outside the box rather than saying, can my firewall do this? Can my IPS be deployed in 5,000 locations? And our notion was, when I started the company 9 years ago, that rather than you having to build these complex gateways in multiple locations, we said we will build an integrated outbound gateway where once we take the traffic, we can do all the functionality that you see that's required, so user can have the shortest path to the internet. We called it Zscaler Internet Access. This is access to external services such as SaaS or open internet to make sure that nothing bad comes in and nothing good leaks out. Then our customers started asking us and said, I love to go to internet through Zscaler. Why won't you let me go to my internal applications through Zscaler as well? Well, that's a different set of functionality that you're used to providing or getting using inbound gateway. Remember that load balancers to DDoS and such things? So over the past 3.5 years, Zscaler has been working on building the inbound gateway, and we call it Zscaler Private Access. This makes sure that any user sitting in your office, outside the office, or a coffee shop or airport can connect to the right internal applications, and those applications may be sitting in your data center or sitting in Azure or AWS without having to depend upon legacy 20-plus-year-old VPN technology. So in this model, you're seeing there is no network to secure. Network is an important transport. It's critical. But internet is becoming the corporate network, and you'll hear more about it from Frederic. The new way of thinking security is to make sure to provide secure and policy-based access. So right user can have access to right application or service. That could be in your data center, that could be a SaaS applications, and that could be an internet site. So the new model. I would like to flip it over to Frederic, who's going to walk us through how he has been thinking and how his company have been embracing cloud securely. We're going to go back and forth while we do this discussion. Frederic, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, and hello everybody also from my side. Thanks for joining. I would like to share with you the transformational journey to the cloud, which Siemens started already around 3 years ago. We were basically approaching things in a way which are very similar to what Jay shared as the company's strategy. I think this resonates very well with our vision. But let me briefly start on the next slide with a quick overview, some facts and figures regarding Siemens. So Siemens, revenue-wise, is around 80 billion euro annually. We have 350,000 plus employees, and Siemens is operating in around 192 countries, which is almost a fully global coverage, which of course also is causing or driving certain complexities which we had to handle with local regulation and compliance requirements. And just checking regarding the slides, now they are updating. I think you can see now page 15, which should be good. Regarding the company's vision, overall, not only IT, but for the entire company, our focus is lying on the so-called EAD, which is electrification, automation, and digitalization. And basically, Siemens expects the strongest and biggest growth in the area of digitalization, where we clearly want to become the industry leader. And of course, automation and electrification go hand in hand with that. And also there, we are investing and also growing significantly. And that, of course, puts a certain burden on the enterprise IT, on the IT department, as we have to cope with new requirements. We have to, of course, serve the business with latest leading edge technology, and we give them hopefully the flexibility they need to reach the targets. Therefore, we also had to fundamentally rethink the approach, how we are setting up our network. And therefore, we came up with a pretty simple 4-layered model, which of course starts with the so-called level 1 local connectivity. That is basically the mainly wireless connectivities in our corporate locations or mobile users. That local connectivity, in many cases, of course, has to be attached to the carrier network. And there we are seeing level 2, the bandwidth. We would like to purely reduce it to the internet bandwidth. So we also have currently prepared for communication purposes a very aggressive motto, which is the internet will become the new corporate network. Therefore, our intention is to clearly reduce the business VPN MPLS network so that we are not maintaining one of the world's biggest wide area networks, private networks for Siemens anymore going forward. And I mean, besides the bandwidth, there's of course a high need of good security controls. So you need to really orchestrate and master the journey of changing landscape, whereas we have less and less control over the different assets as we are going into a SaaS world where we are consuming public cloud services, where IoT is influencing our landscape and also the security requirements or the requirements of connectivities from endpoints. We have been discussing and investigating products on the market which could help us on that journey. And we started off with introducing Zscaler Internet Access on level 3 to cover that demand roughly 2 years ago. But let me quickly take you through the main pillars and our basic requirements around that. So let's start with level 2, level 1. As I already mentioned, the main priority is really that we are leveraging the network, which is anyhow the default network for all cloud-based solutions. So why not also take this as the default for a company like Siemens, and only as a fallback for corporate critical, mission critical applications, we would maintain an MPLS network. So the keyword here is local internet offloading with higher priority, as already mentioned. Then, of course, we need to be fit for purpose. It's important to think user-centric, that we always have the right quality of experience, and of course, a scalable architecture in place, which supports also real-time protocols or other very high dense network traffic, which we might see in the future. Wireless first, I also mentioned that briefly. So we clearly reduce wired LAN ports to the absolute minimum. And we also need to make sure that employees are not, as they did in the past, complain to us that they would like to have internet being as quick or as fast as in their home offices. As 10 years ago, they said, I would love to have internet connectivity and performance as good as in my office. So that fundamentally changed, and we need to really get this into a performance level where they accept it, use it, and where we also can fully secure it. The next level, and I would start with level 4, the orchestration. I think that's, of course, important that you have still, as you are more or less cloud sourcing your security, and we will go more into details regarding our Zscaler implementation in a minute. We need to make sure that the governance layer is still in our control, that we can not only authenticate users, but also devices using different authentication mechanisms. Also, for instance, using advanced technologies like geolocation or behavioral analytics, so to figure out whether the user is really behaving like the baseline would suggest. So to figure out, do we really grant a certain user access on our applications, whether they are in the internet, whether they are in the resource network, or also early use cases where we are working on to connect certain IoT devices with applications, backend servers, etc. So this all only works if you are really going to step into a very much software-defined, driven, micro-segmented network environment where you have the freedom to really connect every dot as required. And you need to have a strong identity and access management in place so that every user is clearly assigned to certain roles, and that you are more or less over time introducing a policy framework which is slicing the elephant into pieces, which really helps you to get better visibility and in the end optimize also your traffic. On the one hand, north-south between users and applications, and on the other hand, what we see more and more also east-west between the different applications as they have interfaces, and in a growing microservices-oriented application architecture, you will find that more and more that there's also a high security requirement or more advanced security requirements to properly ensure secure communication between different endpoints and application interfaces. So let's focus on level 3, security. As Jay was already mentioning, of course, we were also thinking along the same lines, internet access outbound, whereas we are using Zscaler internet access for the entire company, which is, as I mentioned, 350,000 users or 450,000 workplace systems. We are adding mobile devices so that we have full control for both device types and also devices on the go, which is, of course, for us a very important step, as we wanted to ensure that we are, on the one hand, leveraging the benefits of the cloud, and on the other hand, bring it to a whole new level of security. So if you just go to the next slide, please. Sorry, that was not refreshing already, so exactly page number 20. So for us, it was important, or is important, that cloud-based infrastructure and resources are accessible in a seamless way with high performance, and that we are able to protect resources, but also endpoints from any kind of attack and or malicious behavior. Also to be mentioned, it was for us a very important milestone that we also integrate all collected log files which Zscaler is producing with our cyber defense center, which we are running in 3 regional hubs to ensure that we are taking proper actions once we are identifying any malicious behavior or malicious attacks. So therefore, we are leveraging the information during the processing more or less in real time and can take corrective actions up to like disabling certain devices and putting them into quarantine. So if you just recap with the IT transformation slides and storyline which Jay was sharing with you, this is exactly the story which we are also seeing and going within Siemens. We are moving more and more applications to the cloud, and I think the main point really is that you have to deal with a situation where you are not in control over all endpoints and you cannot physically secure the networks you are using in your entire IT landscape. Over to you, Jay.
Thank you, Frederick. So what you're seeing is the corporate wide area network, which used to be fairly straightforward, hub and spoke coming to the data center, has become fairly complex, the traffic patterns and all. With transformational network, you can make it pretty simple, and that's really what Zscaler helps you do. In fact, quite often when I get asked the question, it seems too good to be true. It seems so simple. How could it become so simple? Well, it's designed for the new world. It's not designed for the old world. We're trying to retrofit older stuff to the new model. So I'm going to take the next few minutes and give you a little deeper view into how does Zscaler Internet Access work to provide you secure access. And this is digging deeper into the level 3 left side of what Frederick talked about in their architectural diagram. So how does it work? So in this diagram, you're seeing the cloud and SaaS applications at the top. The bottom shows you your users who may be at the headquarters, branch office, coffee shop, wherever, or you may have IoT devices sitting in your manufacturing plant or wherever. And you potentially have an MPLS network already in place connecting you to your data center applications. What Zscaler essentially does is to say, you should optimize the traffic flow such that the data center traffic can stay on MPLS, but the internet traffic needs to be peeled off at the source. So what you do in your branch office is you take your standard router, often Cisco, whatever Juniper may be, and you configure it to say internal traffic stays on MPLS, and Zscaler becomes default route to the internet. We can handle all ports, all protocol. It is that simple. You make a change, traffic starts flowing. A very large airlines in the US had 40,000 employees coming through your data center. One weekend, they created GRE tunnels, and all 40,000 employees start to flow through us to take the security to a significantly higher level. So that's use case number 1. Use case number 2 is mobile users. When you are on a laptop or you are on a mobile device, we get 2 options. You can have a Zscaler app, a lightweight app, whose main job is to forward traffic, or pack file. This can send traffic to the Zscaler cloud no matter where you are. Once the traffic is received, we apply the policy that needs to be applied. Moving on to the policy side of it, this is the most fascinating things we've built. Imagine 300,000 employees in every part of the world in 192 countries. You want to have a policy by user, by group, by location. Germany wants something special. China has its own challenges, and Latin America wants something different. Single central console to define a policy, and as soon as you make a change, the policy gets picked up by every employee in every part of the world. There's not a single solution out there by any vendor that gives you this level of flexibility and real-time policy, because they're designed for putting policy in each appliance one at a time. And then logging becomes another issue. Imagine you have 500 or 5,000 branches. You got a little firewall or proxy sitting in each place. And now you want to bring the logs together. It takes forever. In the new world of cloud where Zscaler was designed for, every log of every employee in every part of the world is available in a single console within a few seconds. That's the new design, that's the new architecture. So you have a real-time policies and you have essentially near real-time logging and reporting available, so you know exactly what is happening in the world. Moving on, a platform that is purpose-built, multi-tenant architecture. This is not a bunch of traditional boxes racked and stacked in a data center behind some load balancers and whatnot. It brings together entire functionality in the 3 buckets: full access control, including firewall, full threat prevention, including sandboxing, and full data protection with DLP. And everything was natively built SSL scanning, because without SSL, you can see over half of the traffic. And reporting. Every board is asking these, have we been compromised? They're all worried about it. With Zscaler, since everything goes back through Zscaler and all bad guys talk back to the internet, we literally see tons and tons of botnet calls being made from infected PCs in the corporate network. Firewalls and most of the time other devices just can't see them, can't handle them. So this real-time report can show you botnets. You can drill down by location. You can further drill down by each employee, so you can essentially remediate or disinfect those machines. This is the power of Zscaler security technology. Then cloud applications is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Auditors are asking the CFO, and CFO is asking the CISO, what cloud applications are we using? Well, how do you know? There's nothing deployed on the PC, right? So since all traffic goes through Zscaler, we can give you real-time visibility by class of applications. In this case, this customer, this is a real screen of a customer. This customer was surprised to find that GitHub was highly used, even though this was not allowed. They're surprised to find how much Facebook and YouTube traffic was out there. So you can get full visibility using Zscaler technology. Office. Everyone is beginning to deploy Office, or they have deployed Office. Zscaler's customers wanted a single view of all Office traffic by application, by location, by user, inbound versus outbound. This dashboard is an example of what you could benefit with Zscaler for Office 365 visibility. I'll simply mention the Kelly Services case study. This company has highly concentrated, centralized hub and spoke network, hundreds of locations coming back. Imagine trying to bring all the Office traffic back to a data center, so it should go out to the internet, to Office 365 data centers of Microsoft. The right architecture, as Microsoft will advocate, is local breakout, and Zscaler works very well with Microsoft. We have been spending a lot of time with Microsoft to make sure everything works well. And that's what Kelly deployed, and they found that the user experience went up significantly. And as the graph shows on the right side, before Zscaler bandwidth control, YouTube used to be the highest user of bandwidth. And in this case, finally, Office became the highest user, real business applications. So Office requires local breakout that Zscaler actually supports, and it needs bandwidth control type of functionality, so you could give high priority to Office 365. So this is a summary of internet access, going to your users going to either open internet or third-party SaaS applications. Now we're going to talk about the other area, which is private access, private applications. Maybe, Frederick, you can give us a little bit idea of the kind of requirements you are looking at for private applications.
Of course. I mean, for the private access, our main requirement is really that we are able to handle the application access not from a flat network in terms of everybody could potentially try to access an application, but really do this on a microsegment basis, that only users with the right access rights could potentially access the application, try to access the application, and that we can handle it on different levels. I think I was mentioning it before that we want also full control of our users' devices, so that we can distinguish, is this an access from a mobile device, from a workplace system, maybe in future also from an IoT device. And I mean, what comes on top, there is clearly a high security need for Siemens, as we have this diversification of applications in the cloud, that we are also getting our access controls on the next level, while not giving away the governance and the orchestration of these controls. And we also want to make sure that we are taking this to the next level of security transparency. I mean, you have been already for the outbound traffic sharing some nice graphs and statistics, and also visibility, which is extremely helpful data when it comes to the overall health status. And that, of course, drives confidence, which you can promise as infrastructure organization to the ISEC organization or to the CIO, etc. And this is just for us the next consequent step as we were introducing end-to-end access, and private access is for us a very nice answer fitting into that picture.
All right, thank you, Frederick. So digging a little deeper into private access, all of us know that if we wanted to access our internal applications, either we had to go to the office and be on a corporate network, or we had to extend the corporate network via VPN to wherever the users are. Imagine you have 5,000 people using VPN. Your corporate network extended to 5,000 locations with 65,000 ports open. Not a good thing from security point of view, but VPN is used by everyone because this is the only good technology we knew that could work. Now, it's hard to find someone who likes VPN, and this is for internal data center. But now imagine going to Azure and AWS applications, your internal application. Now you are asked, from your wherever you are, go back to your data center so you can go out through a site-to-site VPN to your internal application of Azure. Makes no sense. So what Zscaler built over the past 3.5 years is private access, which says, I'll connect a named user to a named applications, not network. We don't need to deal with network. Network is a transport. We'll give you direct path to cloud applications, no hairpinning needed, no VPN needed. How does this technology work? Well, it's a very innovative design. As you can see on the slide, it has 3 pieces to it. There's a policy engine that's in the cloud, which tells where you define who can access what application. There's a lightweight app on the client, and this actually helps to forward traffic. It can also help you with device fingerprinting and better multi-factor authentication. And third piece, we have something called Z-Connector, a light VM, which sits either in front of your Azure or AWS instance, or it sits in data center. This actually opens inside-out connections, so no outside-in connection is allowed. And connection starts from the client. We authenticate using a third-party ID provider. If the user is allowed to access an application, only then user sees applications. Without authentication, nothing is seen. And if policy says yes, a microtunnel starts from the Z-Connector, one starts from the end user device, and we broker the 2 tunnels. Simple. We do not examine any traffic in this case. It's a fully secure tunnel, end-to-end, and it basically lets you go directly to your Azure and AWS applications. The biggest things that are revolutionary about ZPA, users are never on the network. That means they can sniff around and move laterally to discover other things and cause harm. Your apps are invisible, so we act as a DDoS mitigation device. Your apps are segmented, one application at a time with a microtunnel. Nothing else can come in. and you can eliminate VPN that people don't like. So this is the high-level view of the of the private access. 4 use cases. While for Zscaler Internet Access, you offer it for all employees, this actually you start application at a time. Every company has a few dozen partners and probably a few dozen employees from each partner coming to the data center on VPN. Why do you want contractors to be on your network? You don't. Use Zscaler Private Access for that. Easy case to get started pretty quickly. And then you could also deploy it for access to internal applications as you move them to Azure and AWS. So you access them almost like Salesforce. No need to go back to the data center and do site-to-site VPN. Number 3, as you buy and sell companies. Remember, when you do that, you're told to combine the 2 network, and you think that the other company's network is not good enough. It can't be combined with my company network. Or how do you split the network? It's almost impossible. With Zscaler, networks don't matter. For private access, the right user has access to the right application. 2 employees could be sitting in the same room on the same network. One has access to application A, and second has access to application B. Makes it beautiful. And finally, replacing VPN can be done very easily. The next slide shows a couple of screenshots. In the interest of time, I'm going to just skip through them. But I'm going to give it back to Frederic as he can wrap up the entire story together before getting into lessons learned, because he walked you through different levels, and this thing brings it all back together to make some summary statements. Frederic, over to you.
Thank you, Jay. So looking at our next generation network slide again, the 4 different layers, as per our explanation, are perfectly describing from an enterprise point of view the different aspects you have to consider. You need to, of course, first of all, make sure that you are somehow getting an entry point of how to sell this to the business. That was also one of our challenges. Why now change fundamentally the network architecture, especially when it comes to the inbound access, where we have been discussing private access functionalities and features. This is really revolutionary, changing the way you can orchestrate your network, but maybe we shouldn't even say orchestrate the network, but orchestrate the user to application access and vice versa. So basically, we think that this is a very nice approach of avoiding exactly the kind of mistakes and hurdles you're identifying all the day or all the time when you're moving applications to the cloud. You're thinking about extending your intranet to the cloud. You do this maybe 2, 3, 4 times, but then latest you are figuring out that it's not a good idea to just do such kind of network extensions. And also with an, I would say, continuous deployment of software-defined mechanisms and technology in the different layers and levels, you get more and more possibilities, but also more complexity. And therefore, it is very, very important that you get something in place which helps you control the complexity and which maybe also makes you less dependent on the network, especially when it comes to the IP-to-IP firewalling rules or port-based rules, etc. All these things are topics which we would like to not eliminate fully, but reduce to the absolute minimum which we need and require to run a performant and also a secure corporate network. And I think the 2 Zscaler products are, for us, really the key ingredients for getting there.
So, Frederic, lessons learned. Doing this massive transformation in a very large company, you always learn quite a few things. So help us walk through your experience of what you learn, and then so the users can learn from it as well.
Yes, so let's quickly go through the 4 major items. You were sharing use cases in the beginning, and I think it's all about the use case. So if you think along the lines of a daily life of the user, you quickly figure out that there are some things which could be optimized. There are some processes or procedures that you could get rid of. And that was for us one of the highest goals, that we are just reducing for the user the hurdles in daily life, reduce complexity, and ideally even support the user with a better performance and higher resilience and availability. So think user and make sure that you are also involving them very closely in change management and communication so that they really know what's going on and why is the change so necessary. From a business risk perspective and compliance, I mean, as I was mentioning, we are operating in a very high number of countries, and there are a lot of countries with embargo situations or special legal situation where you have to provide certain data or need to make sure that certain things are blocked, restricted, not accessible, and that also user-related logging data, access protocols, etc., are stored in a certain way. So also here, I would say a lot of learnings. However, also the clear message that it is handleable. So, I mean, with good preparation and good investigation upfront, involving the right stakeholders who are really able to judge on the different requirements and how you could technically implement them. So that is really important. And from a risk perspective, I mean, by changing the environment, you are always incurring new risks, but these risks seem to us to be definitely manageable. And there's also, meanwhile, not one single employee questioning the fact that we are here relying on a cloud solution, because in fact, this is just the most scalable way to implement such kind of a security mechanism and connectivity. Simplification, I mean, we touched on that already several times during the talk. I mean, again, for us, especially when it comes to the connectivity to different environments with maybe, as of today, different ways of connecting, of authenticating, that can be massively simplified. And I mean, hand in hand with the simplification and the reduced need of extending your network, the reduced need of having users VPNing into your intranet and then going outbound again to the internet, which is kind of really old school and in the end not performant. This immediately leads you to a discussion, of course, with your CIO and CISO in regards of what risks do we have, but maybe on the other hand, how good can we optimize, what are the benefits also money-wise. So Siemens was able to cut its cost by implementing these services by already 30%, and we expect that higher reductions will be possible in future, as we are also reaching a full deployment state for the private access product and component. And therefore, the ROI is, of course, something which you can clearly demonstrate in the business case. And with that, you are paving the way to renovate your network and to become future-proof, as the changes, as Jay was already mentioning, are inevitable. I mean, either you change or you will be changed. One of these two items will definitely become true. All
right. Thank you, Frederick. We all know cloud is happening. We've seen Siebel being replaced by Salesforce. PeopleSoft is giving way to Workday. We think the same way we are seeing enterprises taking advantage of a purpose-built cloud security platform to replace a clutter of their traditional legacy appliances. To really offer cloud-based architecture, you need a proper architecture. Imagine trying to build a power plant using power generators designed for your home use. It's not possible. It's a different design, different scale, different architecture. You have to build it from scratch. That's why Salesforce won and Siebel, the dominant player in CRM, lost. We're seeing the same thing happening over. We're seeing a number of traditional security vendors trying to rack and stack boxes or rack and stack VM, so to speak, to really old technologies, but they are all single tenant to start with. You have to have a multi-tenancy. Any user can go to any data centers out there, and the policy of that users can be applied. The logs can all come back. So Zscaler built a 3-tier architecture which has essentially the control plane, the data plane, and the logging plane. That's why the policy can follow the user and be instantly available no matter where you are. That's why the logs can come back. That's why we can give you data privacy in this environment where our EU customers have their logs stored in EU, US customers in US, some of the very large customers such as National Health Services of UK with 1.6 million users. They wanted the logs behind their own firewall in the data center. All those options are available because it was designed from the ground up to be a cloud architecture. We are sitting in about 100 data centers across 5 continents. So you have the shortest path to internet, the largest security cloud, handling 30 billion plus requests per day, blocking about 125 million of those requests. That means one out of every 250 requests, 1 out of 250 is malicious. Security updates, I never imagined that we will be doing so many updates a day, 120,000 unique updates a day. Why do we do that? Imagine 8,000 to 10,000 phishing attacks detected every day. How do you make sure that within seconds of detecting your entire cloud or enterprise has it? Try to do it with a traditional appliance and on-prem world. It's not possible. In closing, Zscaler and Siemens are glad to share our experiences with you guys without taking a lot of time. I would mention that if you're looking for moving to the cloud, securing your distributed enterprise with local breakouts, if you're trying to do an SD-WAN transformation project, you're looking at Office 365 deployment, or you're moving your applications to AWS, Azure, and you want to access them securely, we can help you. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if we can use the rest of the time to answer the questions that audience has been really submitting.
So Jay and Frederick, we did have quite a few questions come in, and I'll try to get through them. I've aggregated a bunch, so hopefully we got it, get everybody's questions kind of addressed here. The first question is, what were the key decision points for choosing Zscaler, and how long did it take you to deploy Zscaler Internet Access? I guess, Frederick, I'll turn that one over to you.
Yes, sure. So maybe let's start with the deployment time. So we actually used around 11 months, so almost a year to deploy globally. So we were going at a very fast pace. And this, of course, started with the typical selection process, which we are going through, POCs, shortlisting, etc., checking the functionality, checking the business case, and of course also I would say, additional security benefits. And in the end, after comparing with other solutions, whereas we didn't see any solution at that level of maturity, which is cloud-based, we decided for Zscaler. So I hope this covered the question, but typical dimensions, process-wise, security-wise, cost-wise, ROI, of course, and then also the features and the user experience. These were the 5 dimensions.
Great. Thank you, Frederick. Another question came in. It was asking, they noticed Office 365 in one of your clouds, and Jay had covered Office 365. How is your voice handled today, and do you plan on routing it over what's the remaining of your MPLS network or going direct to the internet? So it looks like Jay wants to preface this, and then we'll turn it over to Frederick.
Yeah. You know, Office 365 has been happening very fast, so a number of us are learning, including Microsoft. Microsoft used to have a recommendation called Express Route should be used for Office 365. Then everyone realized that it really wasn't working because trying to bring all traffic back to the internet, back to the data center was creating bottlenecks. So now they recommend local breakout. So we have customers where we can actually, they offload all Office traffic, just like your traffic to Salesforce. It comes through Zscaler, and it can handle, so it can not only handle the traditional Office traffic, but also can handle voice traffic, such as Skype. Zscaler is not a traditional web proxy for port 80 and 443. We can handle all ports and all protocols. So we can take additional things offline if you want to get more information, but there's no need to bring voice back over MPLS anymore. All right, next question.
Next question was specific around the business case of the ROI justification. Was most of that from appliance removal or savings on the MPLS circuits? And Fred, maybe you can give some insight on that.
Yeah, it basically was, of course, a blend of all of these. In the end, we negotiated our managed service prices, and we were able to save money by leveraging internet offloading.
Great. Any specifics you can say? Is there a percentage, Frederick? I think they were asking for that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest change you can make is really in the network costs. So leveraging software-defined technology in the SD-WAN, but also in the local area network, and on top of that, in the bandwidth space, where you are not going for the more expensive business VPN, but internet breakouts. And from a ratio perspective, I would say this is roughly maybe 50-50, and you have then also some saved hardware where you don't have to invest in additional firewalls or can de-invest, plus people, because you are able to manage the less or lower complexity with less people.
Great, thank you. Another question, the integration with your SOC, or I think you referred to them as your cyber defense centers. How are you doing that with Zscaler today?
So basically, we are using access, getting access to the Siemens-specific logging data, and we are ingesting that into our SOC or Cyber Defense Center to process it from there and to combine it with other data points. We have to ideally manage our environment and leverage that additional component of transparency.
Great. Another question, as part of your local internet breakout strategy, are you exploring SD-WAN solutions?
Yes, as I already stated, and there's a bunch of companies which work very well in that scenario. So yes, we do, but we have no solution currently globally deployed. So this is currently in the process of deployment.
We'll just give it a second here. We'll just make sure I got all the questions. Looks like, Frederick, we've answered most questions. We'll keep it open for another minute here. One question that came in is, how are you procuring local internet access? I guess a little bit broader question, combining a few here, is, is this an outsourced model, or are you using a partner, or is it something like, how are you doing that? What's the model?
We are procuring the internet offloading through the typical carriers you will find on the market, and there we have, of course, a certain coverage per carrier for the different countries. So we are in some cases using hybrid scenarios. In other cases, as I was mentioning earlier, we really try to go into a internet offloading only mode, because hybrid, of course, brings in new complexity that maybe also triggers some of the questions regarding SD-WAN, because then you, of course, want to ideally consume the full bandwidth and shift between both. So, I mean, that's what we typically see. But our really final goal is to have a 90% internet-only connectivity, including all Siemens locations or branch offices, which is also kind of revolutionary comparing this with other companies where we are exchanging on that vision and network concept.
Yeah. Frederick, a lot of questions coming in terms of firewalls. So I guess if I were to sum it up, does Zscaler, did Siemens remove all physical firewalls, and do you see Zscaler as a replacement for security appliances like firewalls in your branch locations?
So basically, we clearly see that there is the opportunity to replace or to reduce. I mean, we are, of course, still using firewalls because not all of the traffic can be fully controlled by Siemens. Wherever you have access, which happens via external partners, you need to involve certain firewalls, or at the data center edge, for instance, as not all applications are fully enabled yet. But the trend is clear, and I think also the big players in the firewall market are realizing that over time.
Great. Thank you, Frederick. Let's give it just a few minutes here. Okay, we did see CASB. Jay had mentioned some part about CASB and the visibility into applications. Is this something you currently utilize from Zscaler today in terms of how do you leverage some of the visibility into the applications being used?
So we are using it, of course, in terms of identifying bottlenecks or performance issues, but we are also using it to figure out whether we have some abnormal traffic and usage of applications. So, I mean, that is just given the magnitude of Siemens and also the number of applications, which is a 10K plus environment, or even 20K plus, depending on how you count applications. That, of course, gives you the opportunity to optimize your landscape and to also use that additional transparency to derive some additional actions which actually have nothing to do with network, but help you very much to straighten out your entire landscape.
Great. Thank you, Frederick. And it looks like we are at the close of we've used up all of our time. I think we got to most of the questions. For those questions we did not get to, we will follow up with you directly with answers. I'd like to extend a big thanks to Frederick for taking the time out of his schedule, for joining us on this webcast, and Jay for taking the time out of his schedule as well. Hopefully you found it useful and insightful. I would like to ask that, at the end of this close of this webcast, that you do provide, take just a minute or two to provide us feedback on this session, and we'll use it to currently improve our process. So with that, everyone, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Have a fantastic day or evening from wherever you're dialed in from. Thank you.